hear a lot of power rankings during the NFL season and tiers and top 10s and all this. So I'm like, why don't I do this? You know, it seems to be quite popular. People seem to enjoy this, so let's do it. Let's rebrand it, Carving It Up style. So I'm pleased to introduce a very new segment to Carving It Up Live called Bryson's Best 10. The best 10 teams in the NFL. If we can get some background music going right now, hang on. Let's see what we got. We got the background music playing right now to go for Bryson's Best 10. At number 10, the 10th best team in the NFL is my Pittsburgh Steelers. 100%. The Steelers are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. They've got a young quarterback going into year 2. Historically, quarterbacks who have subpar to average to, in some cases, awful year 1s, rookie years tend to go into year 2. Playing great football. I predicted Kenny Pickett goes for 28 touchdowns this season, but even absent Kenny Pickett, this is a really good roster. You've got TJ Watt, who I think is one of the 5 best football players on the planet. I think he's going to break Strahan's sack record this season. He's the best pass rusher in football, bar none, even with Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, just got paid today, Micah Parsons. That's your guy, TJ Watt. You've got an excellent linebacking core in the secondary. You've got guys like Joey Porter, who's going to have a big rookie season. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's one of the established best safeties in the NFL. Patrick Peterson's a great veteran corner for them. And then offensively, Najee Harris has been a reliable running back. George Pickens, who's shown flashes to be a superstar wide receiver in the NFL, is going to have a big season. Deontay Johnson, one of the better number 2, number 3 receivers in the NFL, is there as well. They added Allen Robinson in more of a supporting role than he was with the Los Angeles Rams, so he'll fit there better. All that's top it off. They've got a top 5 coach in football, Mike Tomlin, who historically, famously, has never had a losing season in his life in the National Football League. So I think that should be taken into consideration when we talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to go 11-6. Again, a lot of this first top 10, the initial top 10, is pure speculation. Of course, we'll have a lot more data and evidence going to week 2, but that's where I've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, my Steelers, the 10th best team in the NFL. At number 9, it is the New York Football Jets. Never thought I'd be saying those words coming in week 1 of the 2023 season, 12 months ago, but here we are. They add Aaron Rodgers, who, again, comes off of an average year. If we could put up, I think we still have the graphic, the numbers in 2022, career worst in almost every category this past season. Has not had a 300-yard passing game since week 14 of the 2021 season. However, you can make the case, hey, he was injured last year. There was some internal stuff in Green Bay. Now, fresh start, New York. He's embraced the culture. Defense is excellent. I don't think they're going to be the 85 Bears, as DJ Reed suggested. I think that's a bit too far. He even suggested 2013 Legion of Boom. They'll be excellent. They won't be that good. But offensively, you have Garrett Wilson, who in my view is going to be the Offensive Player of the Year. Have over 1,500, 1,600 yards, double-digit touchdowns. It's going to be very similar to what Cooper Kupp, the connection he had with Matthew Stafford back in 2021 when Stafford became the Rams quarterback. That's what you're going to see with the Jets. They have Breece Hall. They have Dalvin Cook. Literally the only reason they're not higher, because I like Saleh too as a head coach. The only reason they're not higher is their offensive line truly concerns me, and in my view is the difference between them being a contender and being a playoff team, which I have them as a playoff team. I have them winning the AFC East, which isn't as good as some may suggest, but the Jets are the 9th best team in the NFL. The 8th best team, and some may think this is low, but I've got the Philadelphia Eagles as the 8th best team in the NFL, and here's why. Listen, they lost both of their coordinators. They've lost multiple starters on defense last year. And by the way, a defense that was excellent against terrible quarterbacks, mostly. Again, Trevor Lawrence is the one outlier. I think it was week 4 last year. They played great against Trevor. But anytime they played a good quarterback in the NFL, man, they've struggled. Good to great. Remember when they played Dak Prescott, who I consider to be a great quarterback, the 8th best in the league to be exact? Remember they played Dak? Had a 10-0 lead in part because of Dak. Remember Dak threw that pick 6 to Sweat, the defensive end, and Philly's up 10-0. They're feeling good about themselves, and then Dak sits back in his rocking chair, drops 40 on him, 400 yards passing, and has one of the best games of his season last year on Philadelphia. Mahomes had a perfect passer rating. If it wasn't perfect, it was darn close. In the second half, scored every single drive of the second half against the Philadelphia Eagles. They could not stop the man. Even Cincinnati. Even Jacksonville had their moments against Patrick Mahomes. In all those games as well, he was injured. So when they play great, too, in the case of Mahomes, awesome quarterbacks, they struggle. Now, the upside for Philly, Jalen Hurts to me is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and I think he's going to get better A.J. Brown's still a great number 1. Devontae Smith a great number 2. Goddard's a solid tight end, and the offensive line is still top 3 in football. I think Nick Sirianni isn't as good as people give him credit for, but I think he's a type of coach kind of as he delegates responsibilities to others. He understands where his limitations are. Some might criticize him for that. I actually praise him. He's not a type of guy to be in over his head, so I give the Philadelphia Eagles credit. They are the 8th best team in the NFL. I do think they win 12 games this season, but they fall short in the divisional round, I think, to the Dallas Cowboys. But Philly's due for another big-time regular season. At number 7, I love this team. The Detroit Lions. The kneecap biters. If we have the sound bites of that we play every time when the Detroit Lions win, here we go. What do you say about Dan Campbell and Oprah?
Kneecap. 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 Kneecap.
A lot of kneecaps will be bitten this season in Detroit with the Detroit Lions this season. Dan Campbell, I was brutal in the hire initially 2 years ago. 2 years later, I love him. He's built a culture. His players play their tails off for him. They've got a tremendous offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. Jared Goff's coming off of one of the best seasons of his career. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a great number 1. They drafted Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, who I love. I think he's the second coming of Alvin Kamara. It's so similar. His game is so similar. And really what got Detroit last year, the difference between the Lions winning 9 games, which they did a year ago, and probably 12 games, their defense. Their offense was incredible. Their offensive line is top 5 in the league. Their defense was a huge problem, one of the worst scoring defenses in football. They addressed it in the draft. They addressed it in free agency, particularly in the secondary, adding Emmanuel Mosley and Cam Sutton, 2 Tennessee guys, by the way. Go Vols. So they addressed the defense. They got Aiden Hutchinson coming back for year 2 with the potential to have a big-time second year really jump for him. So to me, Detroit, I've said all offseason long, since the draft, they're going to be in the NFC Championship game. I'm just telling y'all before it happens. Detroit, the 7th best team in the NFL. To number 6, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think also will make their conference championship game, but I think the roster isn't quite what the other teams above them are. But I still believe Trevor Lawrence is the 3rd best quarterback in football. His second half stats would tell you just that. Again, aside from Mahomes and Burrow, he was arguably the best quarterback in football. If you look at the numbers, if you look at especially fourth quarter production, a lot of game-winning drives or game-tying drives in some of these games. He had the 27-0 comeback against the Chargers in the playoffs. He was remarkable. Big thing for the Jaguars, though. They get Calvin Ridley. If you think about what Calvin Ridley did in Atlanta, had the year off, obviously suspended due to the gambling situation. Man, if you've seen tape from Calvin Ridley in Jack's training camp, he's about to have a big old year as Trevor Lawrence is number 1. They still have Christian Kirk. They still have Evan Ingram as their tight end. Offensive line will improve. Defense, youth, inexperience, they'll be better this year. Doug Peterson's still an excellent head coach. Won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles against Tom Brady just 5 years ago. So a lot of some championship experience in Jacksonville. A lot of young players who have all the potential of the world to build a championship contending team for years to come. But it starts with their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Will have the Jaguars in the AFC Championship game. I've got them right now, though, as the 6th best team in football. Now to the top 5. And at number 5, the Dallas Cowboys. I've got Dallas at number 5. There's simply not that many. Again, I don't think Dallas is great in a lot of areas. Now, defensive line, I think is excellent with Micah Parsons. Secondary, I'd say the secondaries might be the strength of their team because they've got Trayvon Diggs, they've got Stephon Gilmore, Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson. I mean, they've got some excellent players in the secondary for Dallas. Obviously, some solid linebackers as well. And we know Dan Quinn is the defensive coordinator, former head coach, runs the defense. Offensively, Dak Prescott looks to bounce back from a tough year in terms of interceptions. I thought he was much better than people give him credit for. Some third-level stats would tell you just that. And plus, the eye test would do that as well. But you have CeeDee Lamb, who's coming off an over 1,000-yard season, really proved himself to be a number 1 wide receiver. You got Brandon Cooks, who's been successful in just about every system he's been in. The question I have for Cooks is, can he stay healthy? You knock on wood for Dallas that he does. You have Tony Pollard, who had a big season last year. You add Deuce Vaughn in the draft, who I think he's going to be like a Darren Sproles type role for him. Michael Gallup's a solid wide receiver. Now, the tight end group concerns me a little bit, and the offensive line, similar to the Jets, definitely concerns me. It's not as bad as the Jets. You do have Zach Martin, you do have Terrence Steele, but there are some holes, particularly at center, in the Cowboys' offensive line. But if you look at with Dak's last healthy season, we're talking about a 37-touchdown, 4,500-yard guy leading the Cowboys to the best offense in football. You have the albatross that was around Dak's neck being Kellen Moore gone. You have Mike McCarthy, who's going to play into Dak's strengths better. The Cowboys are the 5th best team in the NFL, and I have them going to the Super Bowl this season. At number 4, though, the Baltimore Ravens, who I think just have a better overall roster, and with all due respect to Mike McCarthy, I think John Harbaugh I think we would all agree, is a better coach. Listen, I had the toughest playoff game or potential playoff game when I did my predictions on Monday with Ryan. The toughest one to predict was a potential Baltimore and Jacksonville game. Because I think Baltimore's roster is significantly better than Jacksonville's. I just think Jacksonville has an all-world quarterback and just as good of a coach as Baltimore does. But if you look at the roster, Lamar Jackson has the best set of skill position players he's ever had in his career, and it's not even close. Going into year 6 with his new contract, you got Zay Flowers they drafted out of Boston College. You got Odell Beckham. You got Mark Andrews. You got J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. Great offensive line. You got an excellent defense. Secondary concerns me a little bit, but a great defense, great front 7 in particular to back him up. Justin Tucker, we know, is the best kicker in NFL history, in my view, and is certainly still the best kicker in football, so their special teams are good. So they upgraded offensive coordinator. They upgraded at weapons. O-line and running game is still good. Tight end is still excellent. The question for the Ravens is, can Lamar stay healthy? If he does, I think they're a 12-win team. I think they win a playoff game, and I think they're talented enough to get to the AFC title game, so the Ravens to be the 3rd best team in football. But the team in their division that will win their division, I think is better today, is the Cincinnati Bengals, who I think are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. I've got Cincinnati at number 3 for this reason. Joe Burrow, and this is even absent if Joe Burrow is going to play or not, but it looks like, according to all accounts, including Burrow himself, he's going to be ready for that Week 1 game against Cleveland, which is huge for Cincinnati, obviously. You still have T. Higgins, you still have Jamar Chase, you still have Joe Mixon, by the way. To me, the biggest, I should say, the least reported offseason acquisition, so to speak, for the Cincinnati Bengals, Orlando Brown, who they stole from the Kansas City Chiefs. Orlando Brown was Mahomes' left tackle, excellent player. He's now in Cincinnati now. They've really struggled with the left tackle. They've had Jonah Williams. They've had a couple other guys. Some real injuries to the offensive line has kind of plagued Cincinnati in both of their last 2 playoff losses. So they're saying, look, if we get beat in the playoffs, it's not going to be for the reasons it has been the last 2 years in terms of we're going to keep Burrow upright. He's great with the football in terms of making decisions. By the way, I think Cincinnati, albeit they lost both of their starting safeties, concerns me a little bit. Chidobe Awuzie is coming off of an injury, but their front 4 is excellent. Special teams is good. Listen, when you have the 2nd best quarterback in football, sky's the limit, and Cincinnati certainly has that. I think they're the 3rd best team in the NFL. The best overall roster in the NFL I have at number 2, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. People talk about the weakness as quarterback, and I don't even think that's that much of a weakness. I'm a much bigger Brock Purdy believer than most are. Again, in these games that he started and finished, not only did he win them all, he led the league in passer rating. So when he took over for Jimmy Garoppolo, everybody was like, oh, it's over for San Francisco. And yours truly sat in this seat right here. Said, no. I don't know. It's something I like about this Brock Purdy kid. He comes out against Tampa Bay, vastly outduels the greatest quarterback ever, Tom Brady. And I come in the next day on Monday and say, sturdy Purdy. Sturdy Brock Purdy is the man. He's mobile. Arm leaves some to be desired, but he's accurate. He plays great within the Kyle Shanahan system. And then after that is as loaded a roster as we've seen in some time. Offensive line is awesome. They have a future first ballot Hall of Famer at left tackle. And Trent Williams. They have Deebo Samuel. They have George Kittle. They have Christian McCaffrey. They have Brandon Ayuk. Defensively, Nick Bosa, congrats to him, just signed the richest deal of any player in NFL history. He got paid today, 5 years, $170 million. Congrats to him. One of the best pass rushers in football. Fred Warner, best linebacker in football. Drake Greenlaw, top 10 linebacker in football. Eric Armstead in the interior defensive line. Tremendous Pro Bowl level guy. Talanoa Hufanga, by the way, who trains with Troy Polamalu. I knew I liked Hufanga. I knew I liked him. Okay? A great player in the secondary at safety. Where is their weakness? Kyle Shanahan is one of the 5 best coaches of football. Where is their weakness as a roster? So, I think Detroit's going to take them out because I think Detroit matches up well against them. Plus, I have to continue and follow through on my promise because I think the Lions are going to get to the conference title game. But top to bottom of the roster, the only thing that scares me with the Niners, every other year, man, injuries really, really plague them. and knock on wood for them. For their sake, they stay healthy. But I think that's what gets them in the long run. But today, as we sit here, week 1, that's the best roster in the NFL. I shouldn't say it's not close, but there's a solid gap between them and whoever's number 2. That leaves the obvious number 1. It's the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, who will play tomorrow, and I'll predict their game in just a moment. Listen, Mahomes, that goes without saying. He's the greatest quarterback on the face of the earth. I think he's the 4th greatest quarterback ever already. Only guys that have above him are Brady, Montana, and Manning. I think with a title, he potentially passes Manning, given Manning's, and I love Peyton, but given Manning's postseason resume, Mahomes is one of the greatest postseason quarterbacks ever. You consider the fact he maybe has the best arm in the league, incredibly accurate, is the best playmaker we've ever seen at the quarterback position, and not to mention Andy Reid, who's probably the greatest offensive mind since Bill Walsh. You got him a head coach. Now Travis Kelce, by the way, according to his brother Jason Kelce, may actually play tomorrow, which is, I don't know if I'd risk that if I were Kansas City or Kelce, especially get 10 days off after this game before week 2, but be that as it may, Travis Kelce's one of the best tight ends of all time. Chris Jones, who's not back yet, but when he is back, which is worst case by week 8, according to him, one of the best, if not the best interior defensive lineman with respect to Aaron Donald in the NFL. Great offensive line. Again, people are poo-pooing Kansas City's wideouts today. Sky Moore, I think, is going to have a breakout year. Kadarius Toney's going to be used as kind of like their gadget guy on offense. You still have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who was good for you last season. So receiving core solid, especially with Reid and Mahomes. Defensively, they've been excellent in the playoffs the last couple of years, so I think that's going to be something that the Kansas City leans on from time to time with Chris Jones out. So I have no reason to have anybody else above Kansas City today. I think they're going to go back-to-back. Be the first team since Brady's Patriots to do so. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.